Hello, everybody. I'm very delighted to meet you all. I am going to meet you all properly. We're all going to meet each other properly in a moment. Thank you, Sam, for bit of context at the beginning. My name's Richard. Um, I'm going to be your MC for this morning. I am the chief executive of Always Possible. So, like you, have taken the plunge or thought about taking the plunge to set up a business. My journey started 10 years ago. Um, still riding that roller coaster. But this whole program has been built by, for, with, Sussex-based small entrepreneurs. It's a real opportunity to kind of share learning, direct from experience, as well as to present, as Sam says, tools and models like the business model canvas, and some deep dive information about sort of the technical bits of running a business. So we hope that that balance of kind of personal and slightly more technical is really useful to you. As Sam said, this is the first time we've sort of done this bit online, so forgive any quirks. I mean, you may have already noticed the eagle eyes of you. I'd had to change the date live in front of you, as I had the wrong date up on the first slide. So, there's going to be a little bit of experimentation like that. Um, but also important to, for you to feel that this is your sort of space to to have a conversation with me rather than to just listen to me prattling on. Um, uh, any questions, a good question. There are no questions too big or too small. I will be asking you questions as we go. Um, and there's not many of us, so it shouldn't be too chaotic to have a bit of a conversation around what your ideas are and how it kind of fits into what we are looking at today, which is the idea of a business model. Um, so can everybody see my screen okay? I mean, it's a very boring
Yeah.
with text on it at the moment, but hopefully it'll get slightly more interesting. Um, if I can get it to work properly. So let me, can you see that?
Yeah.
Slightly more interesting.
Oh God.
I mean, not that
Yep.
more interesting because there's lots of my face, unfortunately. But just thought probably useful to give you a little bit of context to me. So as I said, I'm a founder and chief executive of Always Possible, and for my sins, often asked to comment and talk about business, particularly from the perspective of small business, quirky business, kind of business at the fringes. Do a lot of work around social enterprise. Do a lot of work around cross-sector, interdisciplinary enterprise. People that are trying to shape, change, mold, disrupt, as well as build things that fit within the systems that we have to fit within. Um, so do a lot of work in writing, podcasting, presenting. I sit on the Brighton and Hove Growth Board. I sit on the advisory board for Brighton Business School, but have been a Sussex resident more or less 30 years. Now live in Worthing, but have a deep knowledge, I think, of all the kind of nooks and crannies of Sussex. And my team, Sam and others, we've been delivering business support projects and programs for entrepreneurs right across Sussex for the last 10 years, amongst many other things. We also do quite a lot of research around the economy. We do lots of data work and help all sorts of organisations, including universities, councils, big businesses, to make better decisions. Um, so, in terms of business support, the Lewes District Business Startup Programme, as Sam said, is funded by Lewes District Council. This is a 3-year relationship we've got with them, and it's a really positive, sort of collaborative, creative relationship. They've been great at helping us or allowing us to be really responsive and flexible. And this is very much whilst we're kind of leading the structure, we're learning a lot from you guys as we go, and making sure that we're responding to the sorts of things you want to know about. We've been working, as I said, with small businesses across Sussex on similar programs for best part of 10 years, as well as we've had projects in national projects and projects in Essex and London. But where we really focus is on the kind of psychology of enterprise, and where more deep dive specialist support's needed in terms of sort of finance or marketing, or legal. We have the benefit of a really big network of specialists who we bring in to supplement the kind of knowledge that the core team have. So you will meet some of those specialists along the way, or we will signpost you to organisations that we know and trust. So it's a really collaborative and sort of networked approach. So I hope that gives a little bit of context on the screens, a few of the projects that we've run or are running alongside this. So I would like to hear about you. So if you don't mind, in turn, tell me your name, where you're based. Oh, I'll call you in a second. Your name, where you're based, and here's a key one. I want to know why you are thinking about or have set up a business. I don't at this stage necessarily want to know what your business does or lots of the big technicalities. I am more interested in why this is something that you felt compelled to do, and maybe why your business behaves in the way it does, or has chosen to kind of operate in the way it does, or even if you've not set up a business yet, your idea and your favorite cinema snack, because that'll tell me an awful lot about you. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, how you are feeling. I still got the typos as scale of 1 to 10. Ignore that. Scale of 1 to 10. Keep meaning to change that. Your confidence, knowledge, experience, and excitement. So just give me a rough, instinctive where you feel at the moment about those areas. You're not going to be judged on it. You're not going to be tested on it. It doesn't. It just gives me a little flavour of how you're feeling this morning. So I'm going to pick people just in the order that are on my screen, if that's okay. So I'm going to start with Elisa. Eliza, is it Elisa or Eliza?
Yeah, it's Elisa.
Hello, Elisa. Good morning. Lovely to meet
Good
you.
morning. And
So
you too.
if you could, yeah, tell me. Well, we've established your name and we've established how to pronounce it. That's great. But maybe a little bit more, full name, where you're based, and your business why. Let's start with those.
Okay, so my full name is Elisa Bazin. I'm based in Piddinghoe near Newhaven, in between Newhaven and Lewes. The why for the business, it's about giving something to the community and the younger generation of Newhaven, providing them with activity, something to do rather than being bored and getting into crime. My favourite cinema snack would be salty popcorn. On a scale of 1 to 10, confidence is probably going to be quite low, about 2 or 3. Knowledge, the same. Experience, the same. But excitement will be very high up there, about 8 or 9.
Wonderful. Look at that, a textbook introduction. Absolutely. No waffle, clear, brilliant. Thank you so much. And obviously, everybody in this room will be intrigued to learn more about your business idea as we go along today.
I don't know if you want to do Peter, who sat with me, because obviously we're on the same person here, but there's 2 of us.
Let's do that because he's not on my list. So yes, as a separate name. So
Okay.
that'd be great. Thank you, Peter.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'm Peter Booth. That's Booth, because people have got that wrong my entire life. I'm based also in Newhaven between Piddinghoe between Newhaven and Lewes. My business why is it's something that I've spent a lifetime, should we say, playing with, and I finally feel that it is now a time to do it and give back to the community. Favourite cinema snack would have to be the pick and mix, probably a whole bucket full. Confidence 1 to 10 is a 9. Knowledge is an 8. Experience is a 5, and excitement is a 10.
Brilliant. Good, and good to see the diversity in your room as well, in terms of, popcorn and pick a mix are a world apart.
That's why we work.
Well, indeed, I can well imagine. But brilliant to hear that excitement is way up there. That's what we can work with. If that was the lowest for each, excuse me, for both of you, then we've got a problem. The rest we can deal with. Obviously, haven't learned a lot about your business there, but can feel the energy and the motivation, much like Elisa, to do something with purpose. So I'm looking forward to exploring that a bit more as we go.
Thank
You, Peter, very much. I'm now going to come to Eloise.
Hi.
Good
So
morning.
Eloise Francis, I'm based in Chailey, so north of Lewes. Business why, there's two reasons really. Firstly, to give myself some more flexibility. I've been on the hamster wheel of corporate life for way too long. I need to get off it. And then the second one is to allow myself to be more creative in the way I work and what I deliver from a consultancy perspective. My favourite cinema snack has got to be jelly babies, I'm afraid.
Why are you afraid?
Because I just like to bite their heads off first. It's kind
Never
of
apologise, never explain. That's
from on the scale perspective, confidence is probably quite low. It varies actually. I think all of those, the confidence varies up and down, but on average probably sits around 3 or 4. Knowledge is reasonably high, 8. Experience is high, 8. Excitement again varies. I think fear creeps in. So excitement will probably sit at about 5, I would say, on average.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry, got a frog in my throat this morning. Thank you very much. Really, really good to meet you, and we'll look forward to learning a little bit more about your business as we go. A familiar story, I think, of those that have sort of had enough with the rat race and want to build something different and to use their expertise and specialism in a different way. That feels quite an intrinsic part of the Sussex story. So you're not alone in that journey, but I'm sure what you're offering is very special. So we'll learn about that. Thank you very much. I've then got Catherine.
Yes, finally, I think I'm here. So Catherine Baker, but please call me Kate. I'm based in Ringmer. My business, why? I used to be an engineer, and then I had to give up work in 2016 due to chronic pain. And I am so fed up with the benefit system, and scrabbling around and fighting for everything to try and keep myself going, that I thought, I want to see if I can actually make a little bit for myself that will just make me feel that I'm still a human being, that I'm still useful, and that will give me some pleasure in life. I mean, what I want to be able to do is to make sort of small mahogany boxes, so about the size of a tea caddy sort of thing, maybe a bit bigger. I'll see how I go, with potential inlay and hinges and such like. I've made some before for family and friends, but I now want to see if I can actually make them. I mean, it's going to be a slow process because with the chronic pain, it's not going to be an industry explosion. So that's what I want to produce, and we'll see how that goes. Favorite cinema snack, rather sadly, I can't remember what I used to eat when I went to go to the cinema. I haven't been in absolute years, so I'll pass on that one if you don't mind.
Well, what do you enjoy in front of a movie at home then?
Water or beer, I think, is the answer to that one.
Perfectly good response.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, confidence. I'm confident in my product. What I'm not confident is pricing, how to get it to the right people, where to advertise it, which I suppose is the same thing. and how to make sure that in the very early stages it does not screw with my universal credit, which, you know, the job centre are being very enthusiastic, say, oh yeah, no, it's fine, you can do it. And I'm thinking, yes, but so I'm a bit nervous on that front. Knowledge, again, about actually running my own business. I have very little knowledge on that front, very little experience. And as I think as Eloise was saying, my excitement goes up and down. So, you know, I have good days, I have bad days, but I am taking it gently because I do get tired very easily. So it's, you know, I can't run at it full ball. That's
Sure.
me.
Thank you, Kate, and lovely to meet you. And
Thank
sorry
you.
to hear about your circumstances to an extent, but inspired by your motivation to use your skills and to create what I'm sure are beautiful boxes. So looking forward to hearing more about that. Now, the final person on my list, it says Ramatule Healing, which is an extraordinary name if that's somebody's name. That would be a great.
Hello,
I imagine that's a brand rather than a given name.
well, it's actually my it's been given to me this name, but it's not my birth name.
Okay.
My name is Dana, but yeah, I use that name as artistic name, let's say, and hopefully this business name. So yes, I'm based in the Lewes, and my actual name is Dana. My business, I'd say, since I was very little, dreams have been, grown and just building up to some ideas. And now I'm full of ideas, and I think just it's time to put them forward, just to give service to the world of what our mission is. And it's with my partner as well. So it's just sharing our skills and talents. I love to teach people to do the same, to bring home what I can do. Um, yeah, favorite cinema snack, I'd say the old school popcorn. Yeah. Um, Scale, scale 1 to 10.
Sorry, it should be scale.
Sorry.
It's a
Confidence, I'd say yes. It's in presence. I'm at 9. In virtually, I love to grow that. So the confidence online, let's say, is a 4. Knowledge, I'd say 7, 8. Experience, I'd say 8 as well. And excitement is a 10.
great. Thank you, Dana. Really, really good to meet you. And I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about your business through this program as well. So thank you all for sharing that. Put you all on the spot a little bit, but really good sort of micro insight into where you're all coming from. In terms of the rating scales, obviously people are at slightly, different points, but I think as some of you have expressed, these things will go up and down, and lots of external, internal pushes and pulls. Believe you me, after 10 years, that doesn't change. Maybe the experience goes up a little bit, the knowledge hopefully, but the confidence and the excitement absolutely will waver as you forever venture into new territory. But that's sort of the fun of enterprise, and if you're not up for that, then it's going to be hard. But I hope that from today, and certainly, as Sam said, there's a second one of these in a couple of weeks. There are many other elements of this program that I hope you walk your way through. The experience we can't really change, but I hope that certainly the confidence and the knowledge we can start to notch up a little bit as you walk your way through. But we are here to hold your hand, however you need it. So we're going to talk pretty much exclusively this morning about something called the business model canvas. Have any of you come across it before, or
No.
have you used it or seen one? No. Okay, well that's helpful. No, genuinely, because otherwise you'll be teaching me. So I'll explain all in a minute about what it is, and we'll go through it in some detail around how to use it and I think it's a really good starting point for anyone looking to uh, think about and break down some of those big questions or decisions. As some of you have already sort of hinted at, who are my customers? What are my costs? How do I get in front of people? How do what resources will I need? We're going to cover all of that. Um, but first of all, a big question. Um, and I'd like you to interpret this in any way that you like, but I think it's quite an important one for us to spend a few minutes debating. What is a business? I'm using the word business, you're using the word business. What do we actually mean? What is a business? There's no wrong answer here.
Well, it depends on what your interpretation of a business is, isn't
What's
it?
yours, Peter?
A business. It's putting something out there that generates an income, shall we say.
Okay.
That's a very sort of that's a very bland, what I'd call stereotypical view of it, I suppose.
It's not wrong. Like I said, there's nothing that's wrong. No, that's really helpful. Is a business more than that? Can it be more than that? Should it be more than that?
A lot more. For me, it's a personal journey and adventure. So it can be a lot more than that. It can be something that you can literally put your entire life into. You can eat, sleep, drink business if you let it. I'm sure you're aware of that yourself.
Oh, yes. Anyone else got a view on what a business is?
I was going to
Charities.
say the same thing, I'm afraid.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. What if we start with Eloise and then I'll come to you?
All right, I was going to say charities are business. They're not for profit. They plough their money back into social good. So for me, yeah, it's quite broad ranging whether it's for profit or not for profit.
But I didn't use the word profit. I used the word income.
I know. Sorry.
Again, yeah, not wrong. Absolutely, a charity is a type of business. There are lots and lots of different things that we can call a business that this project will explore. Kate.
To be honest, forgive me, pain brain. What I was going to say is skipped. I'm afraid, so it's gone.
Of course. Well, if it comes to you, scream it at me.
Okay.
Dana, what's a business to you?
I'd say an idea ecosystem, so that it grows and develops by itself. Yeah.
Interesting. So, for what I hear you're telling me, a business is a vehicle. It's a way to generate money, and whether that money is income for the business owner or whether it is generating a vehicle
Reinvested.
for money for income that can be reinvested in some sort of value or some sort of product service. And Dana, I think what you said there is really interesting. It's its own thing, and I think that when we talk about business from a legal or a technical perspective is actually quite key. So one can run a business and be a sole trader and be self-employed, or one can run and start a business that is, actually got some distance from yourself, a separation of liability, as it were. So if you set up a limited company, that business legally exists in its own right.
Sorry.
That's all right. And
My alarm went off. Apologies.
I didn't hear it.
Oh, good. Okay.
So, this idea of a business as a thing, I think it's quite philosophically and psychologically, it's quite weird because, as all of you have absolutely shown me just in the 5 minutes, 20 minutes or so we've got to know each other, is that you are all invested in your business idea. At the moment, your business, in whatever stage it is you. You are its asset, you are its resource. It doesn't exist without you. Yet, when we think about businesses and business models, we have to start to think about businesses as separate entities that exist as a thing that maybe one day you will leave, or maybe one day you will have lots of other people involved with, or maybe one day you won't. But we need at this stage, at this early stage, certainly when we're thinking of starting up We don't yet know. So businesses, are something that you either run as self-employed or you register it with Companies House. And the minute you register it with Companies House, which is where it becomes an entity, a thing, a legally liable existing thing in the world that has accounts and has registration numbers, that then becomes something that exists outside of you. And for many early stage entrepreneurs, I think that's one of the hardest things necessarily to sort of get your head around. And that's something that why we want to explore through what a business model is to how to start to both embrace yourself as the driving force, asset, strength of the business, but also to start to think about it as something that is separate from you. But a business can be many, many, many things. It can have many purposes, and it can have many structures. It is not necessarily one thing. So don't think at this stage that I have any preconceptions about what your business looks like. I don't. And we're going to start to explore the different ways that you want to build it. But my second question is, what does a business do? And it is a slightly different question to what is a business. You've hinted at it, some of you, but I want to give you another opportunity to think about that. What does a business do? Because for me, this is slightly clearer. Kate.
Fills a need or a requirement or a wish of someone to purchase something or to use something that they haven't got access to otherwise, perhaps.
Great, good. Any advances on that? Anyone violently disagree?
Well, I believe it provides a service. It provides perhaps employment to others. It generates money.
Yes, certainly can, and probably should. Interesting in this world of technology, defining a lot of business. There'll be many that perhaps buck that trend. Certainly in terms of employment, there are businesses out there that are turning over millions and millions and millions of pounds that have virtually no staff. It is an extraordinary time, but yes, most businesses create jobs for sure. Any other advances, Peter or Dana? What does a business do?
Maybe create necessity to people. Like if it's a product, or even if sometimes it creates lifestyle. Opens up to a different perspective of the world and allows you to ease into it and explore.
I would say it affects people in many different ways, hundreds of thousands, millions of different ways, depending on what your business is. So you can make people joyous because they're happy because they've got something. It can trigger all sorts of emotions. It affects people. There we are. How about that? That's a very sort of...
It does. So lots of really interesting observations there, and I think clear that business is not one thing, and the ripples of a business can be big, can be small, can affect different people in different ways. And I think understanding what those ripples are from an early stage is really important, or what they could be. So I boil it down into two things in what I think a business does, which I hope sort of encapsulates everything that you guys have suggested. And I think business has to solve a problem. So when you talked about creating necessity, or you talked about offering a goods or a service, or identifying a gap, I define that as solving a problem. It's meeting a need. It is doing something that is either not being done, or doing something better than it is being done, or cheaper or faster or higher quality than it is out there. It is offering a choice where perhaps there isn't enough of a choice, or it is uh, directly responding to an issue that is not fully solved. And that may be place, it may be global, It can be all sorts of different things. But every business needs to understand what problem it's solving, because people don't really buy if they don't feel that it is making their life better in some way. It sounds really obvious, but actually it's a lot of people I talk to that are, in the early stages of setting up a business. They don't really know what problem it is that they're solving. They just know that they would like to buy the thing that they are, offering. But we need to think about who might need a problem solved in the way that a business is trying to solve it. And then the second thing I think speaks to a lot of what you've said is a business needs to create value. Now, value is economic and financial, of course, but it's also social. It is aesthetic. Businesses need to look and feel something, so that people have a kind of psychological and emotional response to it. I think the word you used, I think it was done about ecosystem, I think it's really powerful. Businesses have a role within a system. So whether that's within a sector or a community or a place, whether that's digital and sort of online, or whether that is rooted in bricks and mortar in a shop or a factory, businesses, they create a value through sort of how they interact with all of the other things around them: suppliers, customers, staff, physical and digital community. But also they create a value in employment. Now, a business has to create employment for at least one person. Generally, as I've said, tech is disrupting that a little bit, but let's assume it does. Some businesses employ hundreds of thousands of people. So that in this bracket I'm seeing as a value, because other people's livelihoods and quality of life start to rely on that business beyond perhaps just the founder. So two broad umbrellas there, but I think really important when we start to think about business models is what problem is your business solving and what value do you want to create through it. So I've used the term business model a few times. Does anyone feel confident in knowing what a business model is or what that means?
I have a rough idea.
Okay.
Um, I think it's setting out almost like what you want to achieve in the next week, month, year, 5 years, so that the model will hopefully take you across and get you to where you want to be, perhaps.
Great, good. Yep. Anyone else?
For me, it's mapping the ecosystem which the business is existing in, as well as the structure of the business. So it's not just where you want that business to go, but it's with the context that it sits in. So understanding the potential customer base, how much you might need to invest to get it off the ground, where you potentially network to get that customer base from. So it's kind of that whole ecosystem which sits around that early stage of your business and how you set it up.
Great, good. Agree with all of this so far, but any further advancements or suggestions?
Would it also set out the aims and objectives of your business, and in turn then obviously encompassing all the other things that, especially what Eloise mentioned, about the structure, how it's going to be financed, profitability of it, those sorts of things.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think how I'd boil that down really is your job as an entrepreneur, and you're all entrepreneurs now, whether you like it or not, whether you like the term or not, that's where we're at. Your job is to make choices. And really that's your only job. You need to make decisions about what to do, what not to do, why you're doing it, how you're going to do it, where, with whom, and what happens when certain things have repercussions or consequences because of those choices. It's in many ways the most enjoyable and liberating thing to do as an entrepreneur, because those choices are yours to make. And you know, what incredible privilege to be in a position to make those choices. But it's also the hardest and most terrifying thing, because those choices will lead in all sorts of different directions. So a business model really is just a structure by which you can start to make choices and then hold yourself accountable to those choices that you've made and the rationale for why you've made them. Now, business model doesn't have to be fixed forever. In fact, I would suggest it shouldn't be, as your business evolves and changes. And that could be for a number of reasons. You know, your products and service evolve and change because the need changes, or because you grow, or because something in you changes. Then the business model needs to be revised. So it needs to be held as something that can be reviewed. But for the period in which it's operational, it needs to be really, really clear, and it needs to not be full of ambiguity. And so that's the real joy of a business model, is that it tries to get rid of ambiguity and vagueness. And as entrepreneurs, you're going to fall back on ambiguity and vagueness quite a lot, because that feels like a comfort zone for many, because there are so many things that you can't possibly forecast. You can't possibly know. You are going to be making decisions with probably very limited data in some respects. So you've got to trust yourself. Now, sometimes you're going to have to go and find the data, and sometimes you're going to have to get other people to challenge your decision making. But a business model is a way for you to ensure that you've got at least an idea, a response, a rationale for each of those choices that you're making. And the hardest thing for any entrepreneur as well is to communicate the vision that you've got in your head, because it's in your head. And you know your business and you care about your business. And I'm sorry to break it to you, more than anyone else will ever know or care about your business, because it's your baby. But a business model helps you to communicate and translate at least a fraction of what's in your head in a way that other people can pick up and run with, can invest in, can support, can help advise and grow. And so however you know, feel about putting a business model together, and lots of people are quite reluctant about it because it's, you know, traditionally it's felt like a 100-page technical document full of all sorts of facts and figures and forecasts and things like that. What we're going to show you today is it does not have to be, but having something that downloads what's in your head, articulates the choices that you want to make and why you want to make them, is an incredibly useful thing to have from as early as you can when putting your business together. So that's what we mean by a business model. And so we're going to look at something called the business model canvas. And the business model canvas helps us to figure out answers to these questions. What is it that you sell? Who are you selling it to? How you sell it. There should just be one cell there. Dearie me. How you sell it, how much it costs to make. So whether it's a product or a service, you know, whether you're a charity or whether you are you know, an oil refiner, there will be costs to what you produce. Who pays for it, what they pay for it, how they pay for it, and then what you are going to do with the profit. These are all choices that you will need to make. And some will be easier than others. But the business model is essentially your answers to these questions. And the business model canvas is a way to quite quickly and on one page get across the rationale behind some of your choices. So here is the business model canvas. So any immediate observations of this before I explain it a little bit further? Does it look really complicated? Does it look really sophisticated? Or is it just some boxes on a white piece of paper?
It looks like a business model canvas. It looks like a pet canvas with a business model on it.
And
Well,
it's just one page as well, just
Yeah.
one page.
I think Peter, I think you're onto something, and yeah, absolutely, Elisa. Yeah, it's just one page. It's not rocket science. You do not need a PhD or an MBA. You are simply using a little bit of intuitive structure. As Sam says, you will get editable versions of this, and it will help frame quite a lot of the sort of next steps of this project. It's a tool that's been around for, I think, around 20 years, invented by a German company called Strategizer, and it was a real gift to the world. I think they tried to trademark it, but it didn't go very well because everyone just downloaded it and have been using it. But I know really big businesses that use it when they're trying to set up a new product. We've supported hundreds of small businesses to use it. It has sort of stood the test of time, and there are lots of other versions of it that can be overlaid. So there are social business model canvases. There are scale up business model canvases. There are you can use it for the launch of a new product rather than a whole business. It's still a really recognized tool. But yeah, the secret is it's very simple. But I think that's its charm. So as you can see, a few boxes, and there is a kind of method to the layout that we will run through. And there is a little difference between what's on the right-hand side and the left-hand side, but really all of these things do interconnect together. And it's no accident that in the middle is this thing called a value proposition, which is probably the single most important thing that your business needs to articulate. But we will come to all of that. So let's run through each of the sections in some kind of order, and I'm going to start with the most important central part to the business model canvas, but I think really to your business full stop. So have you heard the phrase value proposition before? Some of you have been in business, some of you haven't. So really it is, what is your offer? And I've broken that down into a number of questions. What problem are you solving? What fears are you addressing? I think that's quite a key question, as we always have a bit of debate about the word fear in these sessions. So I'd be interested to hear your take on that. What benefits are you providing? What are the features of your offer? What does your customer want? And what do they need? Now, straight off the bat, how confident do you feel that you can answer all of those questions about your product or service right now?
All of them.
Go on, Peter. Talk me through just a couple, and let's get to understand your business a little bit more. Perhaps let's start with the top one. What problem is your business solving, do you think?
We are solving a bit of a social and a community problem. I don't want to go into it too much because it'll give it away.
You're welcome to tell us about your business now. It was only the why bit in the intro that.
Okay, all right, okay. So we live next door to a small. I'll keep it short and brief. Don't worry, I won't waffle. So basically, we live near New Haven, and basically there's a lot of issues with a bit of antisocial behaviour, etc., etc. Typical seaside town stuff. We have a lot of kids around that sort of hang around the streets, etc., riding around on their bikes, blah 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 blah. So, cut a long story short, is we want to put in a indoor community skate park rather than just the outdoor one that the council has, which cannot be used in bad weather or in winter. So the problem we're solving is providing a service that, as through my research, literally 99.9% people agree is needed. Next question, which one do you want me to answer next?
No, that's great. We'll stop there for now. Perfect example. But also you mentioned research. And so what underlies all these questions is the question I will ask every entrepreneur, every stage about their decision making is, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? Research, data, understanding, talking to people will be absolutely key for you at every
Yeah.
stage. So I'm really delighted that you
I've done a
framed.
lot of that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it sounds like you have. Um, so a very clear problem that you're solving there, that feels clear to me. Um, and if we were to go down some of the others, kind of what fears are you addressing? So there might be people that don't understand why that is a solution to a problem. There might be people that think, well, we already have an outdoor skate park. Why would there be a need for an indoor one? Et cetera, et cetera. So part of your value proposition is going to be making the case for why your version of this solution is right. Um, the benefits will be clear to young people, or are they? Is this something?
Well, it's mental health as well. Sorry, Richard, to interject there, but a big part of it as well is mental health. Sports and activity is really good for the mind.
100%. So again, part of your value proposition is being succinct and clear as to why and how you know and how your offer, your product, your business is a clear light, has a clear line of sight to that outcome. Um, and value proposition is different to just marketing slogans. It has to be, these are claims that you need to be able to back up. It's not just about how you sell an idea, it is the substance behind the idea. Does anybody feel that a value proposition is going to be impossible, given what you know about your idea at the moment? Or does everybody feel anchored enough that you would be able to answer some of these questions? Getting some nods. Okay. So if we look at an example, and I've chosen to use Airbnb, not because I am cheerleading for them necessarily. If you're a hotelier, you might you might not find that they are the greatest gift to the world, but they are a brand that I think everybody will be familiar with. And I think if we look at their value proposition, certainly in the first sort of 10 years of them trading, they see their value proposition as a crunch point between business strategy and brand strategy. And they've had to consider a number of different audiences for their value proposition because it's not just one. But in answering those questions, what problem are they solving? What are the benefits? They're very clear that for hosts, it's an income generator. So people can get income out of their existing property. That is easy to list that property, that there are clear, kind of calendars and booking systems. They get access to professional photographers that they might not otherwise. And so these are both features and benefits that are clearly at the top of Airbnb's sort of strategic pitch to hosts. But they've also have to have a proposition for guests: price, choice, variety, places they get to stay that aren't bland hotels, that might be in unusual places, that might be in close to travel routes, all those sorts of things. Now, they're also, interestingly, whilst they're a massive competitor to hotels, they think they have a value proposition to hotels as well, and see themselves as part of that ecosystem. Equally, tourism and experience providers, so destination management organizations and tourism boards. So when you're thinking about your value proposition, and we can see here from the Airbnb example, it's not necessarily just about your immediate customers. It is thinking about, and as a word that's come up a few times, the people in your ecosystem. What value are you creating for anyone that might have a touch point with your business? And that could be competitors, it could be suppliers, it could be other businesses that you need to partner with. So when we think about what problem are you solving, there are multiple ways to think about that. Any questions about the value proposition? Because I do want to make sure we cover all of the sections before we have a sort of a broader conversation about some of it. Anything feel on that bit not clear? Grant. So we will come back to that when we look at things in the round. Okay, so your value proposition is to anyone that has a touch point with your business. But then the second most important thing to consider is your customers specifically. So you'll hear us talk about segments quite a lot. And some, if you start to work with a marketing agency or you start to look at some marketing guides for small businesses, they might start to talk about personas. And really that's a fairly modern way of thinking about customers, not just as a sort of block of, people over there that have got some money, but starting to think about the psychology, behavior, need for a problem to be solved, and starting to think about your customers as profiles of people. Who needs your service and goods? Who wants it? Because need and want are two different things. There's a desirability or there's a necessity. So you may be the only option for some people, or you may be one of a number of options for other people. So you need to really think about who those people are and where you sit. Who can afford you? Where do they live? How do they buy? And what I mean by that is, how do they make decisions around where to spend money? What channels do they use to spend money? Is it invoice? Is it cash? Is it electronic payments? Is it subscription? Is it, what psychologically are people going to feel comfortable with if they're needing to have a transaction with you? And who might you need later? So your customer segments might be one profile to begin with, but your strategic choices is right, but I want to expand that at some point. So even if you're not there yet and you're thinking, right, I want to start small, but I want to expand it out, whether that's through geography or whether that's through profile, it's still worth thinking about that early on, that is something that you're going to want to do, because then the way that you collect data from your first customer segments will help you make choices about your second. And something really key here that I've put is that your answer should never be everyone. And it's something I do hear still too often from early stage entrepreneurs when you go, well, who's your ideal customer? They go, well, everybody that lives in England, or men, or people that like having a nice time. And my metaphorical hand goes in my metaphorical head, and I think other way around. That is not. You're already tripping up at the first hurdle there, because that's too broad a definition of your customer. Now, most of you will already know who your customers might be. A lot of people start businesses because they want to be, it is something that they wish existed in the world, and that's why they're creating it. Or with your skate park, Peter, you probably have a very specific idea of who the beneficiary might be. But the question is, who is your customer? Because young people don't tend to pay to use skate parks. So who will be the person that pays for your skate park services?
The
Your
parents.
So
The
that's
parents.
that's a really important part of this analysis, isn't it? Because your customer and your user might not necessarily be the same person. And that's why I ask people to think about who needs you, who wants you, who can afford you. Ultimately, who is the one that pays? You guys are Always Possible's customer today. And for this project, you have signed up. You are the beneficiary and recipient of a service, but you're not paying. And that's a delight for us to not have to charge you. But somebody is, and that is Lewes District Council. So really, they are our customer, and you are our service user. So when we think about how we solve a problem, we've got to think about it from a number of different angles. I'm sort of showing slightly behind the curtain there. But when you're thinking about business, that's really, really important. Eloise, who are your customers? Or who might your customers be?
So my entire career has been in the construction sector. So my network is the construction sector. So for me, the the type of organisation I will be focusing on is potentially the London market of construction, because that's the market I know, that's where my network is. And going back to the previous one, the fear that I'm trying to help with is the fear of organisational resilience and going belly up, basically, because the construction sector is incredibly volatile. So for me, that's the market. It's that we've seen very big companies go belly up recently, but it's the SME market that tends to suffer because they
Okay.
don't understand organisational resilience, and that's the bit that I'm trying to focus on, or will
Good.
be.
But even within that, you started with saying, the construction sector in London, but actually you're also signaling SMEs, SMEs that have a potential worry about resilience. So that's going to be
Yeah,
specific people. That might be
yeah,
well, there's
yeah,
executive team. It might be people that are tasked with change management or financial decision making. Um, Construction sector's a big sector, as you will
yeah,
well know. So actually, is it, commercial property builders? Is it house builders? Is it mixed? Is it architects? Is it, so being able to kind of never be afraid to be quite narrow, um, certainly to begin with,
mhm,
and to test with quite a niche, um, because the comfortable often thing is to throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks and to try and get everybody to respond. If you're doing that, and there's a perfectly good reason to do that, is do that to collect data on then who you need to niche down to. Um, but your customer base won't be all construction companies in London.
no,
Um, so these questions can help, and the business model canvas can help you to really test yourself. What do I mean by this? Who is this? And and when we talked about who, where do they live, how do they buy, what I really want to try and get to do is think about individual people, profiles of people, rather than, because people sell to people, people buy from people. Companies don't sell to companies. There's always a human or a decision maker at either end that is choosing who buys and who sells. And so that is a really useful, as early as you can, is to start to put, psychology, names, choices, motivations against those customers. Let's quickly look at Airbnb. So yes, they have a number of customer segments, guests, and even that's very broad. Um, there'll be young backpackers. There'll be older couples that just want somewhere to go and visit, because they're going to a wedding. There'll be people for business. So they'll need to break that down quite a lot. But it's not. But it's a very specific type of person that's going to rent an Airbnb place. I run an Airbnb. We have rooms in my house that we let out. So that's going to be a very specific type of person that's happy to come and stay in a family home, versus somebody who feel much more comfortable staying in a sort of big box hotel that's very anonymous. So that's something that Airbnb will need to think about quite a lot in terms of their positioning. Hosts, experience providers, they work with a lot of photographers, local photographers, hotels. So they're continually needing to think about who they are selling to. And the thing about Airbnb is they don't own any property. They're a tech business, essentially, that have got into the hospitality space. So they're having to think about the psychology of their customers in quite a different way. So you've worked out who your customers are, let's say, or you're getting on that journey. So the box around channels. So what we mean by channels is your route to those customers. How do you deliver your offer? Is it a physical thing? Is it a digital thing? How do you reach your customers? How do they know about you? How will they find you? Where are you? Is your presence in their lives purely through sort of because they word of mouth, and then they have to go and sign up to something, or do you go to them? Um, are they gatekeepers, potentially to your channel, your group of customers? So starting to think about, the channels, the fronts, how are you going to get to people? So this is starting to think about marketing, but it's also still a little bit bigger than that. It's not just about selling your offer, it's about the relationships that you might need to start to build. It is about understanding how people make the choices or where they get information from about the choices about where they want to buy or sell. Um, and it's understanding, this is very much understanding the kind of ecosystem within which you work. We're doing a big project with a museum at the moment that wants to attract new audiences. And so we're helping them to develop a campaign, um, and actually pushing them to be quite radical, not just with the campaign messaging, but absolutely in where they show up and where they have conversations about what a museum is for. And so thinking about, that there will be low-hanging fruit, there will be easy customers that will recognize what you're doing instantly, and there will be those that will need quite a lot of persuading. So you need to think about, well, what is my A to B route to get to them? Elisa, how do you, uh, what do you think are the obvious channels to your customers, and are there areas where you feel I know where they're at, but I don't really know how to get to them?
Um, so in terms of how we deliver it, so well, it's going to be basically you sort of. I want to make sure I'm understanding this right. This is sort of like about the marketing side of it, isn't it?
It's a lot of it's marketing, but it's also
Yeah.
about sort of your knowledge, and it's about using data. It's about relationships. It's about understanding, where people are at and how they make choices.
Well, I think a lot of obviously with the way things are today, everything is a lot about social media based. But in
Uh-huh.
terms of the community of people that use the skate park, a lot of it is going to be word of mouth. And just because of New Haven being the way it is, a lot of people know a lot of people, and there is a strong community sort of base in terms of children and families that attend the skate park that do things like scootering, BMXing, biking, and what everyone talks to one another. And so social media probably will end up being a small part of it, and you'll probably find that the word of mouth will be a much bigger part of it. And advertising, sort of like on billboards and things, might not even be necessary.
And there will be choices that you make, and so the more data that you've got around, even social media, that's, what are we talking? TikTok, Snapchat, WhatsApp, Instagram, LinkedIn, social media, and social media is not what it was 5 years ago as well. A lot of people use it to find information, but are broadcasting it different ways. Again, this campaign we're doing with museums about getting more young people involved. Young people themselves have told us they go and get information from Instagram, but they don't broadcast on it anymore quite so much. They'll do that because they don't trust it. So that if they're going to share information, they'll often do that in private WhatsApp groups. And so that's a sort of different kind of. So for you, as someone who wants to get in front of, potentially young people, mapping out and understanding and learning and doing and really understanding what those channels might be and how they're changing, will be a really good exercise.
Okay.
So back to Airbnb. So they have a mixture of digital ad campaigns, social media, word of mouth, PR and media coverage, and their app store. So each of those things for them, yes, that comes under the broad umbrella of marketing, but actually really drilling down to look at how and where people get information from and how all these things tie together. Because I mean, we do an exercise, something called the Moments of Truth, with companies that are developing their first kind of marketing mix. People, it might take them 7, 8, 9 instances of being aware of you before they make a decision around whether to use you or not. You need to think about the sort of where people are at on their journey of understanding of what it is that you do. So there's marketing or communications that is to get to raise awareness, but there might be something different that's needed in order to get people to make a decision to take action, to sign up to something, to buy something. And so understanding different channels might be in play for different decisions. So all sorts of different resources around that out there. There's lots of support around marketing, but it's a really important first set of questions to be asking yourself in your business model canvas. What do you know about where your customers can be reached? So that brings me onto the box around relationships. So there's one thing about getting in front of them, but there's something else about how you keep them warm and turn them from customers into sort of advocates, people that go out and talk about your thing. Word of mouth doesn't happen because you ask people to just go and shout about your product. It's because people want to. So questions in terms of that you need to answer for when you're starting to build your business model. How do we know how to build trust with our customers? How do we look after them, and how do they feel looked after? Who looks after them within your team? Is it an AI bot or is it the founder? Who's the front face of the organization, and how is that appropriate for your customers? What do they expect? Where do you engage? Is it purely digital, or are you showing up in physical spaces? Is it a shop? Are you at markets? And what happens when customers are unhappy? Because some will be. So what experience do they have? How easily can they feedback? Do they feel kind of held? Or actually, do you not have the resource to deal with that? If they're unhappy, whatever. These are choices that you'll need to make. And how do customers feedback to you? And how do they know how to feedback to you? So these are all useful questions to be asking yourself early on. You might not have answers to all of them straight away, but the more confidence with which you can start to plot that out, it all feeds into your value proposition. The easier it is you'll be able to explain to people, well, if you come and be part of what we're doing, this is how you'll be treated, and this is how you'll be looked after. Any questions on that? I mean, I know none of it's rocket science, but what this does is helps you to break down different aspects of decision making. Peter, you look like you wanted to ask or say something. You're on mute.
No, it's because my eyesight's not that great, and we're looking at it on a phone. I'm just zooming in to read exactly what you've written.
Okay.
That's all.
Well, obviously, like I said, we'll share not only these slides, but you'll also get the editable thing. So Airbnb customer relationships absolutely key. They don't own properties. They aren't checking people in. The whole thing is built on trust. If I'm letting strangers into my house in exchange for money, I need to know that Airbnb have done lots of due diligence on that. I need to know that there is a system in place so that I can trust the system. But also, I need to know that it's quite easy to use self-service, that I don't have to deal with 500 different people in order to get paid. And so their customer relationship channel there for Airbnb really, really important. So they've had to think a lot about how to communicate and build trust, how to tailor the service, how to manage bad behavior and risks, and how to help those both hosts and guests feel that they've got autonomy in the choices that they're making. So that is the sort of top right of the canvas, your value proposition in the middle, and then all of these external relationships and routes to market there, customer relationships, channels, customer segments. They're all absolutely crucial to be understanding as early as you can, because without getting those things right, you don't have anybody buying from you. And what's key is that you need those people to pay you for something. And you might have all sorts of different models for payment. Like I said, there could be subscription, could be cash up front, but you need to understand what is going to be appropriate for your customers so that revenue is as forecastable and as stable as possible. So you need to ask yourself, where is your money coming from? In terms of, like I said earlier, who is actually paying for it, even if maybe there's a different beneficiary. How do people pay you? Are payments up front or in arrears? And this is quite a key one for any business. And it may seem obvious, but sometimes I get people that are quite late stage in businesses still don't quite understand what it is they're selling, because you're selling one of three things: time, stock, or IP. And that might change over time. So if you're a consultant, you're probably selling time. Eloise, I imagine that's what you will be selling in the first instance when you're talking about your construction business. Um, uh, for Elisa and Peter, in a sense, you might be selling, well, it might be stock. You might be selling things to do with skating, but you're certainly selling access to a space. So there's kind of a physical product.
I would like to say it's probably all three.
And there'll be elements of it, absolutely. But it's really understanding whether that's the case, and how much to invest in the building of each of those things. Now, IP, does anyone know what certainly, Kate, you'll be selling stock with your mahogany boxes. That's a thing, that's a product. Is everyone familiar with IP? Know what IP means?
I know what it means in terms of like a website
You're talking
IP address. Sorry. I know that's not what we're talking about here.
No, not internet protocol.
Protocol, no.
It's intellectual property.
Intellectual property, yeah.
Essentially, your ideas, it could be so for Disney, for example, they sell, stock themselves. They sell products that they make. They sell DVDs, they sell films, things like that. But most of their money outside of cruises and theme parks comes from their IP. So their characters, their names, they license all sorts of manufacturers to be able to create Winnie the Pooh duvet covers. Now that's IP. So Disney aren't physically making or selling anything to customers directly there. What they're licensing, in terms of the general public, what they're selling is the IP to other manufacturers. So IP can cover things like training material and courses. It could be parts of a digital brand, franchising. It could be things that you own that actually start to essentially sell themselves. So the dream in any business is to sell IP, because you don't need lots and lots of staff to do that. Time, you need lots and lots of staff, because you have a finite amount of time. Stock, if you've got a big manufacturing facility, then you can obviously sell lots of stock, and the bigger the operation, the more you can do that at scale. But it is really expensive up front. You've got to pay out lots in order to do stock. IP, in theory, can be developed cheaply and sold at scale without any caps or finite amount of what that looks like. Not easy, but it's important when you are thinking about your revenue streams. What is it that you are selling? And can you, through the course of your business development, maybe move from one to another, or add in other parts to your sort of your offer? If you're only and always and ever selling time, there will always be a limit to how much you can scale that. So, conscious of time, I want to make sure we cover all of the boxes on the left-hand side. So key resources. So this is a bit more internal now. So on the right-hand side, it's very much your external positioning and how you build within your ecosystem. On the left-hand side is very much what you need to establish inside your business. So key resources. How do you legally, safely, and responsibly make the thing that you sell, whether it's a product or a service? What do you have in place in terms of knowledge, in terms of policies, in terms of expertise? What do you need in order to sell it? Do you need a website? Do you need a Shopify page? Do you need deals with stockists? Do you need, what do you need? What humans do you need? Who is going to help you make things and sell things beyond the founder? What machines do you need? What tech? What infrastructure? Transport? Buildings? Specialist skills? Now, you might say very little at this stage for a lot of this, or if you're building something complex, then and is going to, need to pass lots and lots of compliance and due diligence in order to be acceptable in a regulated environment, then you're going to need to have lots of that in place. So, in terms of key resources, how well can you answer these questions? Because they will help, they will be a key part of your business model because you'll need to keep on top of that. Regulations are really, really important for us to live in a safe society. They can be an absolute nightmare for small businesses because regulations and regulatory law is really built for big businesses. So it is often difficult to translate what can feel quite heavy-handed into a very small business environment. And we work with a lot of Sussex businesses that are, small-scale manufacturers that find, the regulatory environment almost impossible to navigate because they need so much to invest so much in compliance. So it's important for you to do the homework on that and to make sure you can answer the questions. Um, if you're making small mahogany boxes, there's probably not a huge amount of compliance you need, but you will need things in place to know that they are safe. What kind of treatment do the wood need? Um, all sorts of what tools will you need? All those sorts of things. So answer those questions as early as you can. Now, this might seem like an odd one to have so late in this conversation. What are you going to do? But I do think the things that we've looked at already are bigger priorities in terms of uh, answering questions. But key activities is a lot of where people jump to straight away when you are an entrepreneur and you've got a big idea. Oh, I know what I'm going to do. Here's the how I'm good at to-do lists. This is when I'm most productive. This is what I'm good at making. This is what I'm good at selling. That's all really, really important. It is important to get the other things in place first in terms of your choices. But understanding your key activities and breaking it down to these questions, how functional and effective are you? You might be an ideas person, but actually you find the doing, the admin, the processing quite hard. So do you need help with that? Do you need additional tools for that? Um, and if you're very busy building the business, working on the strategy, where's the time to do the doing? And how do you break that down into your daily schedule? And how are you going to be accountable for that? Will you have targets about the number of things that you're making, how many people you're selling to, who will be monitoring that with you? So thinking about maybe getting some advisors or having a structure or a project management tool, those sorts of things will be really important. And that brings me to key partners. Whose help do you need? Who will make it easier for you to make things? Who will help you sell things? What external expertise do you need? Suppliers, gatekeepers to your customers. Um, Dana, give me an example of partners that you need in your in helping your business, or who you think you might need.
Um, Not quite sure. It's two of us already. But yeah, maybe someone that engage with customers online. Um, would be something that would be
Do you have an
easy enough
account?
to do. Well, yes and no. Like no, let's say no because it's not developed yet. Um, but yes, like I think
At
that's
some point,
something
you'll need one.
absolutely. Yeah, that's why I'm here.
And so, the choice you make around who you work with for financial advice is really key. And so thinking about where might you get that information from? Is joining the FSB or a Chamber of Commerce in your area going to be a helpful route to finding some of those partners? Um, Marketing support, there might be a specific, once you've established your proposition and your customer segments and your routes to market, actually getting somebody who's an expert with Google Ads or someone who's an expert with building websites, they're going to be really, really key for you, not just as a resource you buy in, but maybe a partner over time.
Mm.
People who might have access to customers that you don't, Um, you know, you're already partners with us by being here today. You've already made a choice to go on a program that's going to start to help you think about business in new ways. And you can work with us over a number of months. So you already made a good choice there. But but actually knowing why you've made that choice, and thinking about other partners you might need. The earlier you can start to map that out and to think about that, because some of that will cost money that you can't afford at the moment. Some of that might not be needed immediately, but will be needed down the line. Some of it you might be able to get a trial period for, or you might need some recommendations on, but not leave it. The challenge is only realizing too late that you need some of those partners or some of that support. So starting to identify and break down areas where those partners are going to be key will help you to feel more strategic, and will help your model to be more kind of stable and not panicking. So your internal thing around money. So we talked about revenue and revenue streams, money coming in. Um, if you're making things, if you're developing things, if you're building things, that's going to cost money. You cost money. You will need some kind of salary or income. If you're employing anybody, they will cost money. If you're writing policies, if you're building websites, if you've got accountants, it'll all cost money. So the earlier that you can start to put an honest and a real forecast around how much things are going to cost, and it will always cost more early on. This is the irony of businesses. At the point where you have the least money is when things cost more money. So where is that money going to come from? Well, you need to know how much you need first. So what's going to cost money so you can make and sell things? What money will you need to spend on time, on stock and IP? We talked about that in terms of what you're selling, the development of those things. What money will you need to spend on resources? And how can you ensure, and this is the critical thing, we talked about profit earlier, whether it's profit or whether you're a charity and it's called surplus, how can you ensure the revenue figure is higher than the cost figure? Again, not rocket science, but actually in an early stage business, that's really, really hard, because you have more costs than you have. You don't have any customers yet, but you're going to cost you being the time you're spending here today is a cost to your business. So how do you recoup that back? Well, the first stage is knowing that it is a cost and recognizing it. So many founders don't factor themselves in as a cost to their business because they think, well, I'm doing it for the love of it. You're not. You are a cost, and if that's going to be sustainable, you need to work out at what point you stop doing it for free and need to have that income covering your time, because you are a resource. So being able to answer those questions is really key when building your initial business model. And sometimes a business model canvas can be a really helpful way for people to understand, and it's a difficult thing to swallow. Actually, this business isn't viable. There are just so many costs, and I'm not going to know the route to income for months, maybe years. As an entrepreneur, that's a really important thing to work out, because it means you might need a different business model, or you might need a different kind of investment up front. You might need a different way of getting income, because the thing that you thought was true isn't going to work. So strategy and choices are about as much saying no and figuring out what not to do as it is about figuring out what it is to do. And so the business model, so the more you can answer these questions honestly, the easier it is to identify some of those uncomfortable truths as well as the sort of exciting possibilities. So I've zipped through the business model canvas there. I recognize that that's very, very fast, but I am conscious of time. This isn't the last, obviously, that we're going to be. Sorry, I'm trying to stop my screen share. I can't turn that off. Right, so we're going to keep coming back to this. You're going to get a version of it. As Sam said, there's a follow-up session to this in a couple of weeks, but there's also to have a bash at your own version of a business model canvas. Answer as many of these questions as you can. Highlight the ones that you can't answer, and we can give some direct feedback on that. We've got lots of suggestions, lots of people we can introduce you to, and lots of support around each of these different areas. And then we've got further workshops that go into more depth around some of these different areas, certainly around things like cost structure and finance, things like marketing and reaching audiences, etc., etc. But those workshops will be so much more useful to you if you come in having answered as many of these questions and started to sketch out your business model canvas rather than going in sort of having made a lot of assumptions. Sorry, that was quite whistle stop, but does that all that make some sense? Does it feel like a tool that you can start to play around with? Any questions, thoughts, feedback?
No, it's been really
No.
good. Thank you.
Yeah, no. Same really. Yeah, thank you for your time.